Nothing quite compares to that experience of settling into your seat in the theater with a bucket of popcorn to watch a much anticipated movie on the big screen. Or does it? Between streaming services with offerings of every kind right in the comfort of your own home and the dominance at the box office of blockbuster-style films, catching a flick isn't what it used to be, some say. Here to reflect on what the cinematic experience means today, Joanna Vicente, Executive Director and co-head of TIFF, the Toronto International Film Festival. Michael Sparaga, filmmaker and director, most recently of the documentary United We Fan. And Rochelle Charcot, programming director for The Royal. That's a repertory cinema in downtown Toronto, and we're delighted to have the three of you on TVO tonight to talk show business. Here we go. Michael, you first. As a filmmaker, the rise in streaming services such as Netflix, what has that meant for you in terms of how people are seeing the movies that you make?
I mean, I had a film sell to Netflix, and I don't know if anybody saw the movie that I made. I mean, that's the first time in art's history since cave drawings that you didn't have a sense of how many people watched my film. I mean, I just didn't have a sense. You used to see how many people came through your cave or how many people were standing outside your garage watching you put on a play, or if something was on television, you've got a number the following day, sometimes that night, they'll let you know. So it was exciting to sell to Netflix because for some reason it's the legitimacy of your project sold to Netflix. But I literally don't know if 5 people saw it, 500 people saw it. They don't share, 5 million people saw it.
They know, I presume.
They know, but that's part of the way they keep control is by not sharing those numbers with filmmakers, you know, so with content creators. They're gonna start a little bit, will be just with their top content creators have sort of pushed for it, but smaller filmmakers, you really don't get a chance to just know, and it's weird. It's odd. It's odd not to know how many people are watching something.
So if you were Scorsese making The Irishman, you can negotiate that you want to know.
He can negotiate fairly far, but he still only got 3 weeks in movie theaters when it came time to his film. That was the biggest push he could get. He got the most cinemas he was going to get, certainly worldwide. He got more worldwide than he got in North America. But it's a strange feeling not to have a sense of how many people are watching, because we're not necessarily making any money making it. The one thing you could potentially have is, well, 23,000 people watched that yesterday. Like, how fantastic that felt.
But you don't know that.
And you don't know it.
Joanna, I want to ask you, because I mentioned The Irishman there. That was I think by today's standards, a fairly unusual way to do business, right? A very narrow window in which this movie by Martin Scorsese was shown in theaters, and then right to Netflix after that. I guess the question is, if you know it's going to be on Netflix, why bother going to see it in the cinema, particularly if it's only going to be there for a short period of time?
Well, we're showing The Irishman at Lightbox, and it actually has been doing really well because I think people realize that those kinds of films should be seen in a theater, should be seen with other people, and you should have that incredible immersive experience where you're in a dark room and you're reacting with the community of people. So it's interesting that I think same with Roma last year. We showed Roma for weeks and weeks and weeks. I think over 14 weeks. So there is still a reason why people want to go to theaters and have that incredible experience. Of course, Netflix has been negotiating with the theaters in North America to try to do that theatrical release. There's the traditional theatrical release window, which is normally 90 days. So they were very far apart, from 3 weeks to 90 days. Yeah. So eventually they went with the shorter release. I think the theatrical release still affords you an incredible amount of publicity that you don't if you go directly to Netflix. Yeah. And then for the first time, they actually released some of those numbers. Yeah. So it seems like 28 million people have seen the film so far. They think up until the end of the year, maybe 40 million people will see, which is huge on Netflix.
On Netflix.
Which is huge. They have not released any numbers about the theatrical box office.
But I assume that you, as somebody who runs a theater, would have liked a more exclusive, longer window in which to show The Irishman.
We actually are still showing, even though the film is already on the platform, the same with Marriage Story. And we still have people coming to the theater because they want to see it.
Even though it's on Netflix right now.
Even though it's on
Yeah, because it's a
Netflix right
different
now.
experience, for
Yes.
sure.
I watched The Irishman on Netflix, like when it came out, basically, and I immediately regretted it. So I plan to go see it at TIFF.
I saw it
Yeah.
at TIFF. I got
Yeah.
there 45 minutes in advance to make sure I could be on an aisle because I measured out how many pee breaks I would take.
Yes.
I thought, you know, I
Three and a
thought, too.
half hours.
3.5 hour movie.
And trailers. Everyone is funny. The discussion in line beforehand was, are they going to actually play trailers before this? Don't play trailers before this. It's 3.5 hours. So people are like, as soon as the first trailer started, everyone quickly ran to the bathroom and then sort of got back. They figured they had those few minutes. But then I sat on the aisle, and for 3.5 hours, nobody moved.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody moved. I have never gone 3.5 hours. I don't go 3.5 hours at night when I'm sleeping, you know? And it was just an incredible experience. And it was just, every moment just hit absolutely perfectly. I think people were so excited to be in that communal experience, to watch something from a master filmmaker and these amazing actors. It was an incredible experience. I'm happy you're keeping it on.
I get how you can compete with the Netflix experience because you've got this, you've got this incredible multiplex in downtown Toronto that is a very, well-known destination for people to come to. But you don't. You have it's a single
One screen. Yeah, right.
in an old theater that you've
Yeah.
made beautiful again.
Thank you.
And like, how do you compete?
So the Royal is very central in the city. We're quite close to Cineplexes, we're close to TIFF. So we are not a prime spot for distributors to give first-run films and not even really second-run films. So when I took over with programming directing, the first thing I did was just eliminate second run. We have a team of programmers that all have about a night a month, but it's open to program more if they want to pitch it. And we do just older films. We make it more event-based. The programmer will introduce the film and give an extended introduction. You kind of get to know who this person is and what their taste is, and maybe trust them on what the next thing they choose is. If you like A, B, C, then you're probably going to like D. Yeah.
Can you give me a little help with the lingo? First run, second run, what does all that mean?
Yeah, for sure. TIFF would have some first run. Cineplex would have some first run. Just stuff being released and then going right into
The first time anybody sees a movie, that way. Okay. But
exactly.
second run, you don't.
Second run is a couple months later, basically. It's it's stuff like the Carlton, things like that, where there's things that have been out for a couple months. You still get a chance to see them in the theater.
It's funny you'd say it because Carlton's actually first run for Canadian films, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's the theater you get in Toronto, essentially. If you're an indie film, if you're a documentary, it can be the Bloor. If you're sort of a bit well-known, you can get into TIFF. But for the most part, it's a first-run theater. But it is where the blockbusters sort of go as they're petering off.
Yes.
But there's also a sort of a mini, it used to be an actual chain, but it's the independent cinemas around the city that play. They'll still be in Cineplex, but they'll be in the smaller theaters as they're sort of hitting these, I think, rep cinemas, right?
Yeah.
Call them.
Yeah.
Does it work this way outside Toronto as well?
Yeah.
Same
Yes.
kind of deal.
Yeah.
First run, second run,
Yeah.
regardless. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, there was big news the other day. Cineplex, right? They're being taken over
Yes.
by Cineworld Group. This is a UK-based movie theater operator. What do you think the impact of? Will there be any impact at all on the kinds of movies that we see and how it all works? What do you think?
I think how it all works more. I think their subscription service, they have Regal in the US, and that subscription service, which now AMC is even adopting. So sort of taking the Netflix model, where you pay a monthly fee and you can see as many films, not quite as many as you want, but I think 3 a week. I think that's how they're sort of doing it. You can go, so you don't think about it as much. The reason you sort of sit home and watch Netflix, you think it's free, but you're paying $13.99 a month to see it. But it feels free because you don't remember physically paying that cash each time. And if you could have that sort of access to a movie theater, same as selling a subscription to like the ROM or like a museum or something. When I had my ROM subscription, I would literally talk about the bathroom a lot, but I would use it just to go in and use it. It was a place that was yours. It was sort of safe. You trusted the programming, and it's about loyalty. You know, everything really is about, like you said, with the programmers, right?
Yeah.
You build loyalty towards your brand, the Royal brand or the Royal programmer, and certainly TIFF is.
Yeah. So audiences are definitely really wanting that kind of subscription model. That's the all you can eat. Maybe there's some restriction in terms of how many films you can see a week. And even MoviePass, which was an incredible experiment, worked incredibly well in terms of adoption, but then the business model didn't really work because they had to pay all of the distributors and the exhibitors the price of the film ticket. But I think that's definitely the future. So.
What does it cost to see a movie at TIFF?
$14.
14 bucks.
15.
And at the Royal?
14.
Same as 14. Okay. So 14, popcorn, drinks, transit and or parking,
Babysitting.
babysitting if you have kids, for sure. How much do you worry about whether or not your product is too expensive for people?
I still feel it's one of the cheapest forms of entertainment if you think about it, and if you want to get out of the house, and we give you a compelling reason to do so. We have great films. We have the best place to see films potentially in North America, and then we also create an experience. We try to enrich the experience by having programmers or people linked to the film talk about the film, kind of adding the context and helping to make it more of an experience. I think it's still a very reasonable amount of money to
What do you
get
say on
there.
that?
Yeah, I think when it comes down to the conversation of Netflix versus movie theaters, it's just such apples and oranges to me. I think that certainly it's not always accessible to go to a movie theater for some people. Maybe that movie ticket is the difference between eating dinner that night. There's a variety of different accessibility concerns. So yeah, absolutely have Netflix because everybody deserves, an entertaining night in. But same thing to what Joanna said. We try to keep our prices reasonable. We try to make sure that we're not skyrocketing our popcorn or anything like that. And we'll stay that way. We're not gonna oversell something just to try to get some extra money.
I do not have to tell the people at this table how big a business movie making is these days. And I saw these numbers, and we're going to share them with our audience here, and I tell you, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Okay, Sheldon, put this up here. Here are the top 10 highest grossing movies worldwide for 2019. And for those listening on podcast who can't see this chart, I'll read out some of the stuff here. Number 1, Avengers Endgame, $2.79 billion worldwide gross. Number 2, The Lion King at $1.65 billion. Number 3, Spider-Man Far From Home, $1.13 billion. Number 4, Captain Marvel, $1.12 billion. Number 5, Toy Story 4. Toy Story, there's 4 Toy Story movies already. $1.07 billion. Number 6, Joker, $1.06 billion. Number 7, Aladdin, $1.05 billion. Number 8, Frozen 2, $1.03 billion. Number 9, Hobbs and Shaw. That's one of those Fast and Furious movies, right? I don't know which one it is. Is it number 7? Anyway, whatever. They've made a lot of them. $760 million. And the last one, I gotta admit, I've never heard of this one.
Chinese film.
For sure, yeah. Beijing Enlight Pictures. Ne Zha, $700 million.
Yeah.
You may have noticed, people wouldn't have seen this listening on podcast, but if you saw the charts, you would have noticed that 6 of those films are Disney Pictures. Spider-Man also, they shared with Sony.
Yep.
That doesn't include Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, which is coming out this weekend, also a Disney picture.
Yeah.
And I want to just have a bit of a discussion here about your views on the dominance of Disney at the box office. Good, bad, indifferent, what do we think?
Bad whenever one company has that much control
Yeah.
over anything. I'm a cynical person who just sort of feels the stronger corporations are, the worse it is for people in the long run.
Yeah.
I sort of feel it's not like we've had blockbusters in the past. I mean, if you go back to 1999 and we think, what a great year for film that was. We had Election, we had this, we had that, and it's like, it's still blockbusters essentially ruled the day on it, but there were multiple companies putting those out. Disney has they don't go too dark. They stay in a certain level. The programming sort of feels a samenity to it, and that's their loyalty, that's their brand. People can trust that brand, and
You know
that's
what
what you
you're
want to
getting
do.
when you go to a Disney movie.
You do, yeah. It's amazing to think, because Spider-Man, like you said, that is essentially a Disney movie. Even Sony has part of it, and then Skywalker in 5 days will knock the final film off that list, and so it'll be seven of the 10.
Do you know what's interesting about these Disney movies, though? Avengers, that's a sequel, or maybe even might be the 3rd or 4th.
23rd. Seriously, it's the 23rd. It's 22nd. It's the 22nd film in a series. It's like they've.
Oh, well, yeah, okay.
Sure,
but,
yeah.
but it might be the third or fourth Avengers movie.
But that's
yeah.
how they look at it. They've made, if you think a television series used to be 22 to 23 episodes,
Yeah.
they're doing a 22, 23 film. So it's they've brought television viewing to the feature film world. And you have to see each of them.
But look at this, Lion King. Okay, I remember when The Lion King first came out.
Yeah.
25 years ago, whatever it was. Spider-Man, that's another sequel.
Yep.
Captain Marvel, another sequel. Toy Story, another. That's the fourth one.
Yeah.
What else? Aladdin. Okay, we remember when the original Aladdin came out. Frozen 2, obviously a sequel. Fast and Furious, as we joked, the seventh one or something like that.
Yeah.
They're clearly, I mean, Rochelle, there's a formula here, right?
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
seem to be buying it.
For sure.
So can we complain about it? We like it.
Any sort of like corporate monolith that's coming through and rolling everything over is certainly intimidating, especially for me in running a rep cinema. What happened kind of recently was the Fox merger, which eliminated an arm of programming for rep cinemas where you could not do Fox films anymore.
Disney bought out Fox.
Yeah, which was really intimidating when it came up. But we lost an entire arm of programming. There is just this big kind of blank spot. Fortunately, we've been kind of lucky and haven't really programmed a lot of Fox films.
So
but
Fox films that people would know that you might have previously had access to
Die Hard.
would include Die Hard.
yeah, Edward Scissorhands, tons.
So you can't program them anymore?
Alien?
Just can't do it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Alien would be on the list. So you have no access to those anymore.
No.
Is it because Disney doesn't program to rep cinemas?
I guess so. Yeah. It's either it'll be kind of vaulted or it'll be way too expensive. So it's just not possible. It's not financially reasonable. It's not allowed.
Joanna, what's your take on this?
Well, it's pretty incredible if you look at what happened this year between the merger or acquisition of Fox from Disney. Disney starting Disney, Plus.
Yeah.
Then Apple starting, their Apple TV Plus.
Yeah.
When you look the consolidation of AT&T and Warner Brothers and kind of restructuring with the Warner Media, it's pretty amazing what happened. It's like major disruption
Consolidation,
and
yeah.
consolidation. And we haven't seen this much change in probably since the early 80s, after kind of the arrival of like cable channels and then video, home video. So it's pretty incredible. And I think what will happen in the next year, 18 months, also with new streaming platforms from Universal, with Peacock and
HBO Max. next year.
HBO Max from Warner Media.
Yeah.
I think it's like major kind of disruption of what's going on.
Well, it does have some people asking whether or not it's time to break up Disney. And
Yeah.
here we have a quote from Guy Lodge writing in The Guardian, who says, "Are we seeing a return to the rigidly controlled Hollywood studio system of the 1940s and 1950s, only with one studio effectively as the system? If so, a movement not dissimilar to the demands to break up big tech currently rippling towards Silicon Valley might be in order." Do you think they should break up Disney?
I think they definitely should consider what it means to have a studio that is so much bigger, towering over the industry with incredible IP that they can still, it's like franchises. So, all of the films that you were mentioning that are like, just kind of the same of what we've been seeing. So it's also, there's the danger of really like you have this kind of monoculture, where is room for, different original stories and how do those voices find audiences.
I think that's the key.
Yeah.
How do they find audiences?
Yeah.
Because I was actually looking at the numbers of what Disney's putting out, and even just the sequels from other big studios. There's still, in 2018, over 750 movies released. But it's I think all of the sequels and the Disney stuff is just under 1% or around 1%. But they take up the majority of the space. They take up so many cinemas all the time. So it's just, we also saw smaller cinemas were closing, and the opening of bigger screens. And bigger screens are not where smaller films go.
Yep.
So everything is trending towards smaller movies, just not really finding space where people are. I mean, that's the key, is there space where people are to go see it? You can, is a film really released if it's at the Carlton in Van City and one out in Vancouver? Not really. It's an obligation by a Canadian distributor to put something on a screen because they have to release a certain amount of Canadian
They're
films.
not really championing it or backing it.
And who's hearing about it? And that when it does come out to a Netflix or a streaming service, you can't even get onto the trending or the new releases carousel because people don't know about it. And you could say, well, my stars are going to be tweeting about it.
Yeah.
What are your stars? Well, the people in my movie will be tweeting about it because
Yeah,
they're not
yeah,
stars to them. We don't have that star system either.
They do call it show business, not show art.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, they could do a little better on the streaming services, and they're trying to, right, through regulation, trying to say like Canadian films. So there's an actual category on Netflix in Canada that shows Canadian films, like iTunes kind of does. I think that could be helpful, or if depending on how people feel about Canadian films, it could be the first thing they bypass. I really think they have to be integrated into the new releases of everything.
There's also always been a tension, and it's been a positive tension between art and commerce. And there's wonderful big films. There are artistic films, and The Irishman is a good example of that, and will be seen by millions and millions and millions of people. So it's not that art is a bad thing. I think we worry sometimes that with the platforms and personalization and it's like that you start getting the same instead of being challenged to see things that are different, that maybe you would take a risk. I think risk is like inversely proportional to to the money that one spends. So the more you make huge films, formula films, the less you're going to take risks.
Sure.
Yeah.
As long as you brought up Scorsese and The Irishman, he said something not too long ago that was pretty controversial, right? He basically started a debate on whether those movies that are made by the, Marvel or DC Comics or these kinds of things, superhero movies, whether it's real cinema. It's a bit controversial. Where do you stand on that?
I think that it's an admittedly cranky statement, but I think that what it's kind of failing to acknowledge is the fact that Martin Scorsese, in all likelihood, has that digestible genre of films that he likes to go to. I bet Marty loves a Mel Brooks film, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's perfectly valid to like Marvel, but also like The Irishman and like film and like cinema.
But he went further. He went further than that. He said they're kind of not real movies.
Yeah, I think there's maybe a difference between movies and film. You can have fun when you go see a movie sometimes.
I get that.
Well,
What's your view on? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I think, yes, he made that difference between, kind of those kinds of films being more of a form of entertainment versus cinema.
Well,
and
he
for
said it was like
him,
a
it's
theme
more
park.
like a theme park.
Yeah.
And I think for him, he lives in the world where cinema is, auteur films.
Yeah.
Where the directors have really original visions.
Yeah.
So,
It was funny
so
to
those
me.
are the kinds of stories.
Yeah, it was
yes.
funny to me when he said that because some people were kind of like outraged with him, and I was like, did you really think that veteran filmmaker, champion of world art house cinema, Martin Scorsese is really getting down with Age of Ultron? No, I don't think so.
I mean, he's also commenting on stuff he really hasn't seen,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is fine. I mean, I don't know if anybody making those movies thought, I hope a guy in his 70s watches this. I mean, it's not even,
Yeah.
movies that Disney makes are made for 14-year-old people, They're made for the people who can go see it. So for him to not have seen Thor Ragnarok and seen the art that's actually in that film, it's not surprising he would have that opinion. But I think in that New York Times follow-up that he did after that interview, he talked about it was just they're not risky enough for him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that I think is a real important thing. When art is supposed to be risky. When I go see a Marvel movie, you could be like, well, sometimes characters die. It's like, but I could probably tell you before the movie begins exactly who, and I could totally tell you. Everything goes through a corporate board. It has to be part of a game plan that's been set out. And like we said, it's a 23rd movie. So we talk about the Marvel movies, and then they just keep going. It's not like they said, okay, let's reset and start the whole Marvel universe again. No, the next movie's 24. The next movie's 25.
You did mention that he did write a piece in the New York Times in order to kind of explain what I meant to say, anyway, we've got a little excerpt of that here. Let me read this. Here's Scorsese in the Times. In the past 20 years, as we all know, the movie business has changed on all fronts. But the most ominous change has happened stealthily and Under Cover of Night, the gradual but steady elimination of risk.
Yeah.
Many films today are perfect products manufactured for immediate consumption. Many of them are well made by teams of talented individuals. All the same, they lack something essential to cinema, the unifying vision of an individual artist, because of course the individual artist is the riskiest factor of all. He's onto something there, isn't he? Don't you think, Joanna? He's onto something there.
Yeah, absolutely. For, our mission at TIFF is we believe that films can transform the way people see the world. And I think that transformation happens when people are confronted with something that they probably have never seen. And that there's an original vision, that there's a world that really challenges how I've been seeing by either creating empathy with a character that you might have never seen, or it's just a world that you're not that familiar, and it opens your eyes and it makes you think. And if you have films that are kind of written by committee and they're follow a formula, you're not going to have those moments that are the moments that changes, that make us like be every day, like reassessing
But I
who we
don't know
are
if-
and how we see the world.
I don't know if he'd seen some of those films. I think Jojo Rabbit has a lot in common with Thor Ragnarok in tone, in vibe, in feel, in the way people are directed. I also think the representation that Marvel movies have given, I mean, I see a lot of kids dressed up as Black Panther. I see a lot of like kids dressed up as Captain Marvel. And so that influence that, oh, we can be heroes too and we can see ourselves on screen. It's for a small scene art film that might be wonderful and fantastic and would open your eyes. If nobody's seeing it, the influence isn't societal, Whereas Marvel, way too late to get into the game, but their second phase of films, you're seeing more representation, you're seeing more female heroes, so you're seeing, and those sort of changes can be really great for society as well. And I don't know, Martin Scorsese comes from a time, I mean, I love him. I mean, I can snap to
Bless
the
his
edits of
heart.
Goodfellas. I can snap. But representation isn't necessarily his thing. He has some things that, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore is a long time ago, for him. And The Irishman, I love it. But it is a lot of mute women to the point where that became an issue
He
with
likes
Anna
Italians
Paquin's character.
and he likes men.
Yeah, he likes white men very much. And I love his movies, and a lot of other people do.
I wonder if, Rochelle, I think it's probably 40 years ago already that we talk here about the single unifying vision of one filmmaker. Michael Cimino made Heaven's Gate, and it was a huge bust. And then you're going to remind me who did Ishtar.
Dustin Hoffman and
I
Warren
know it's
Beatty.
Warren Beatty and Dustin
Warren
Hoffman,
Beatty.
but who made the movie? Was it Elaine
Elaine
May?
May.
Elaine May.
made the movie.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, they spent hundreds of millions of bucks and you didn't even see it on the screen, and it was a big bust. I wonder if studios are still terrified at the notion of giving that much power to one person who can ruin an entire year with one bad decision.
I would imagine somewhat. I think that it's probably with Disney kind of rolling through and changing the format of everything, I would hope to see in coming years a kind of recalibrating and like a reassessment of value. I mean, when you look at something like TIFF or the Royal, I still see tons, hundreds, thousands of people who come through and want to seek out contextualized film and cinema. So it's not like it's ever going to die. It's kind of just deep within human nature to want to seek that out, to seek out art. So yeah, I don't know.
Isn't that, I mean, is that fair for the studios to be risk averse given that their whole years can be ruined by one film?
Well, when you own so much, it can't anymore. I mean, that's the point, right? You put yourself in a position where a product launch, I mean, that's what Apple really is. It's a product, so it's, you don't get killed if the iWatch doesn't, become something. And their releases are just more iPads and more iWatches. It's Amazon makes its money in other places. They can take the loss on what they're doing. So they're trying to make it that a brave decision doesn't kill you in a way.
I don't think Jason Blum is losing sleep over Gem and the Holograms. You know what I mean? I think he's fine.
Okay.
I'm excited that next year I think there are 4 or 5 big films, and Disney has 2 or 3 that will be directed by women. So I think it's really exciting because part of sometimes the argument around like not giving the opportunity for women to direct these bigger films because they really haven't proven that they done well on the box office, although they take risks on young male directors that have not made a lot of money on the
All the
box
time.
office all the time. But I think it will be great to see, because if these films do really, really well, then their argument is gone, and then we possibly can really move the needle.
In our last couple of minutes here, I want to focus on two things which I wonder if it's an indication that they are prepared to take bigger risks than perhaps we're giving them credit for here. And those two things are Black Panther and Wonder Woman. Now, those are not classic superhero movies, right? Those are different. And they did fabulously well at the box office. Do you think that's a sign of things to come?
Potentially. I'm a little bit pessimistic. I kind of think that corporations realize that that's marketable in a way. So I'm not too, I mean, it certainly means something. I think it's certainly very important to have heroes be on screen like this and be in such a massive availability to people, but I just don't like or trust corporations. I don't care about the decisions they make.
Yeah.
Michael?
They wouldn't be doing this. There was money. They thought if they thought
Exactly.
they'd lose $1 doing it, they wouldn't do it. You know, it
Yeah.
has to be that the support is there, and that's just it. You're seeing support behind these films. I mean, they did Catwoman back in the day. Was it Halle Berry? I think Halle Berry is Catwoman. But they gave second tier everything to it. She was a major star. They didn't give it a big release. They didn't do anything with it. Whether the film was any good, that doesn't really matter because lots of movies that aren't any good have huge marketing budgets behind them. It's just hard to make good art. It's just really hard to make it. And then to not put money behind it when you've made something good or bad is the other killer. So I don't know if corporations should be necessarily trusted to be the source of inclusion and inclusivity and representation. They're doing it for money.
Yeah,
Unless
and-
it's good business, and
Exactly.
hopefully, you know, enough examples will prove maybe it's good business.
But if good business
my
and
hope.
if good business and socially responsible decisions line up, great, right?
Yeah, exactly. I
absolutely.
think at very least we shouldn't like pat Disney on the back for it. You know what I mean?
Think about Disney, don't you?
I don't like.
I can tell. I can tell.
Did you see Abigail Disney talking about the minimum wage? That was one of my favorite things last year, talking outright to the head of Disney and saying, you need to pay your people more. You need to pay your people more. I've gone through the park, and I'm a billionaire who gives a lot of my money to charitable things, and I went undercover and walked through, and there's a major problem here. And that's the thing when people talk about people don't go to movies much anymore. Well, the standard, people don't have as much available money as they used to have back in the 80s. It's more expensive to live, and salaries haven't risen with it. So cheaper options like a $13.99 subscription to see on a screen that's now the same dimension of a movie theater in a home theater that has comparable-ish sound to what you were going to see. It's not that they don't want the communal experience; they just can't afford it.
Exactly.
You know, I think you need to see more social equality, and then, like you said, it's democratization of pricing when it comes to movies versus any other art form. But it's still more expensive than, and Disney knows that. That's why it's $4.99 for Disney.
Mr. Director,
Plus.
can I please have a wide shot here of our gathering? Because I want to know how many of you are going to go see the new Star Wars movie over the holidays.
I have my ticket for tomorrow night. I've
You-
had it for 2 months.
No kidding.
I know. Yeah.
Good for you.
And this morning,
And
brought
not
to
you
me.
too? You're not going to go see it? No? As a cultural phenomenon? No. Okay, in which case,
Look, I otherwise like look, Umberto D's my favorite film. You know, Victoria Sica. Like it's not just Star Wars.
Okay,
It's-
I get it.
Totally fine to love
well,
Star Wars.
regardless, I will just say, may the force be with all of you. There we go. Can I thank Rochelle Charcot and Joanna Vicente for coming from the Royal and the TIFF Lightbox, respectively, and Michael Sparaga, filmmaker, director of United We Fan. Go find it. Go find it. It's so nice of all of you to come into TVO tonight and help us out with
Thanks
this.
for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.